What are the Aravallis? What is their spread in the Delhi National Capital Region, and why should every inch of the Aravallis be protected from mining, construction or real estate development? Once again, these questions need to be examined, all because a Haryana government committee has advised its officials to identify the areas under the Aravallis on the basis of the centre's 1992 notification, which only covers old Gurgaon district areas and not the Aravallis in Faridabad under the National Conservation Zone. This advisory of the Haryana government, if implemented, will open the Aravallis in Faridabad to large-scale development. Joining me are Ritvik Datta, environmental lawyer, Chetan Agarwal, environmental analyst, and Mr. M. Ramachandran, former urban development secretary, to tell us why we should actually not allow this to happen. Ritvik, this advisory of the Haryana government committee, which frees up about 8,000 hectares of Aravallis in Faridabad for development, why is this flawed and wrong?
See, first and foremost, an advisory is only an advisory. And I think that's firstly, the government recognizes that what it is doing is actually illegal. So therefore, they clothe it into this wonderful word called advisory. Sometimes they put it under what they call as office memorandum. Sometimes they call it as circular. But at the end of it, there is no legal basis to this document. The Aravallis are protected by virtue of them being Aravallis. These are also forest land as per the Supreme Court order of 12/12/96. Therefore, this advisory is what we call as non-est in the eyes of law. It should not exist, and it does not exist. And the action of the government of Haryana from the very beginning, if you look at it, whether it is Kant Enclave to others, it is where the Supreme Court of Justice Madan Lokur has said that the state of Haryana is not under the rule of law. It is under the rule of men who actually want to violate every single law. And so therefore, there has been a consistent stand of the state of Haryana to violate every single legislation that is aimed at protecting the environment, and most importantly, protecting the only area which has good forest in the entire state. We should not forget this is a state with hardly 3.6% forest cover. And this is what they are doing. So therefore, my point would be that this order and the advisory is illegal and it violates the Supreme Court order.
Chetan, so it violates the Supreme Court order, and in 2016, I remember we did do a discussion. We spoke about the fact that Haryana government had agreed with the National Planning Board's definition of the Aravallis, which had deemed about 50,000 acres as Forest National Conservative Zone. So what is it? Are they just trying to find a way to go behind everyone's back and start the development?
That's pretty much it. So in 16, there were a series of meetings coordinated by the NCR Planning Board and the Secretary of the Urban Development Ministry. And they agreed, Haryana also agreed, and the direction was given by the NCR Planning Board that all areas which are classified as Gair Mumkin Pahad in the revenue record will be treated as Aravallis across the whole state of Haryana, NCR, and in fact across the whole NCR. So basically Haryana keeps coming up with these subterfuges. So now sometimes they're sneaky, sometimes they're brazen. So it can't be more brazen than this, that they say, Haryana now says that we have nothing called Aravalli in our records. Gair Mumkin Pahad is not Aravalli because we don't say it is Aravalli. And if MOEF has told them that it is Aravalli, then MOEF has told them for Gurgaon. So if you take a step, one step from Gurgaon Hills, Gurgaon Aravallis into Faridabad, you suddenly become into non-Aravalli area, which is, absolutely ridiculous.
All right, Mr. Ramachandran, I think subterfuge is the word being used here, sneaky or brazen. But the most important point that Ritvik made, and this is where I'd like you to come in. 3.6%, Haryana ranks amongst the lowest when it comes to the forest cover. National average is 24%. And as a country, we have a target of getting to 33% active forest cover. So why is the state government messing around with the little bit of forest that they have?
That's one part of the story what you mentioned. Ideally, if every state can reach the 33%, nothing like it. And if that should mean halting all other activities, that's one way of looking at things.
Okay.
My understanding of the situation is ground truthing is something which has been emphasized again. And while conservation, preservation, these are all important. Also, at the same time, probably, as I understand, there are issues relating to people who have already undertaken construction. I'm not talking about the powerful lobby, but there are poorer people also who have constructed their houses. And I think in some, with respect to some orders, some houses were to be demolished also. So it's a question of, in the context of the next regional plan, which is 2041, I believe, which the NCRPP has floated. It's a question of having a better situation incorporated in the regional plan, which is coming up. And for that, if they are doing some groundwork and if the intentions are clear, I think that's the right way of doing it, because you have to have an idea of what has happened on the ground, especially because there is either lack of clarity or there are problems with regard to definition of words like forest, Gair Mumkin Pahad, and MOEF notification and things like that. So one could also see it from the point of view of ascertaining the facts at the ground level, so that when the regional plan is formulated, in that proper representation of what is on the ground is incorporated in this scheme of things. That's how I see it.
Fair enough, and that's an important point too. So ground truthing, Chetan, will you respond to that? That, you know, if people are living in it, in these areas, and this is not about the encroachment, but locals who have been living here for the longest time, do we really need to evict them and then get back to conserving the forests?
So the current regional plan is the 2021 regional plan. It was published in 2005, and so, you know, you can have a cutoff date of 2005 or whatever cutoff date you come up with. But basically, the regional plan of 2021 has a natural conservation zone, in which there is no construction to be allowed more than 0.5%, and that too only for regional recreational activities. So real estate is not allowed by definition. So this ground truthing is basically another one of the subterfuges which has been going on since 2014. They have done 2 or 3 rounds of ground truthing. And every time they do the ground truthing, they've identified about 8,000, more than 9,000 and 9,500 hectares of NCZ in Faridabad, and now, which includes the entire Aravali area. And now, if they come up with, you know, if this prevails, that there are no Aravalis in Faridabad, 8,000 hectares out of those 9,500 hectares will just vanish from the NCZ. So,
Chetan, you know, so I think everybody is worried about the fact that forests, actually, why do we need to preserve them and conserve them? Because they act as natural groundwater recharge. And opening them up in an area like NCR, which is already polluted, Haryana, which is short of water, is a larger question of what happens to citizens who are already living here and their health, isn't it?
Yes. So, you know, there's a 50,000 acres, one single consolidated patch of Aravalis, which we have mapped, which is divided between Asola in Delhi, the Faridabad Aravalis from Surajkund to Bhatkal to Mangar, and then the Gurgaon Aravalis from Bandwadi till Damdama Lake. It's one single patch, 50,000 acres. And if you look at, you know, Delhi has protected theirs as Asola sanctuary, Haryana has not. And if you look at Gurgaon and Faridabad, they are highly urban districts, the highest rate of growth of urbanization. So even if you want to balance out, you say, you know, you can do real estate and urban development in 90% or 80% of these districts, but you can leave, 5-10% for these big green areas and forests. And they are our only surviving wildlife habitat. There are corridors it's a wildlife corridor. Leopards move from Asola to Faridabad to Gurgaon and beyond. Groundwater recharge, even if we are selfish, we don't care about the wildlife. This is the largest groundwater recharge zone. Aravalis have high recharge rates. All this water seeps into the ground and flows towards the plain areas. Air quality, of course, is critical. It's a bird habitat, and it's the only forest cover left. So all this talk of balance is fine, but you know, if you've already urbanized or are planning to urbanize 90%, then you shouldn't be looking.
Why should you not leave that 10% just for forest?
Back.
I agree with that. I mean, 90% has been opened up. It is open for development. Ritvik, what next now? Look, this advisory has now been floated, right? There is a high chance that the state government may find some way of opening the Aravallis in Faridabad for development. Where do you go? Do you go to the Supreme Court? Do you go to Ministry of Environment, NCR Planning Board? Where does the buck stop?
I'll first say that, the Aravallis itself should be looked at as development. They're opening it up for destruction. So what we are trying to say is, Aravalli and the section which, Chetan mentioned is an oxygen and water producing factory. And I think this is where we need to recognize that there is already an industry which nature has created. And that industry is, producing life-giving oxygen, water, providing refuge for wildlife, birds. All this is what makes living meaningful. And you have Gurgaon and Haryana and Faridabad as among the two most polluted cities in the world. And so therefore, if little bit of sanity is left in those in power, they should have a sense of pride in having the Aravallis, of having such a forest. Any nation in the world, any civilized country in the world would go all out to protect a natural heritage like this. And it is unfortunate that, the state is all out to destroy, because maybe this is the only reason why people in Gurgaon are still breathing some air. And therefore, this is where the problem comes in. And I think we need to recognize this. And what again I'm saying is, Haryana government's action is illegal, improper. It is unconstitutional. The state has a duty to protect environment and to have compassion for all living beings. Every other day you find leopards being crushed. Do they need to show a proof that this is an Aravalli? It is an absurd argument. So I definitely think that, not just the court, but I think citizens' movement is very, very critical in ensuring the protection of this area.
Mr. Ramachandran, this is an important point that, as climate change issues are now the danger is clear and present, right? And green lungs are now more and more critical for our future generation. Don't we need to do a lot more fine-act balancing between development and our green cover, sir?
Of course, they have to do, but it's on a statewide scale. Here you are focusing only on one part and one particular issue, and that too confined to one single district. So I don't think any state would want to do unconstitutional things and risk their existence, especially when judiciary has given different types of orders at different points in time. So it's a question of gelling what is at the ground level with what exists and what needs to be done. While I have no dispute about preservation and, as I said, looking after the nature and maintaining the tree cover and things like that, where there are problems with regard to people, as I said, who are already there, that's one aspect to be addressed by any civilized government, and that will have to be taken care of. Now, whether there are lobbies behind this or not, and the lobbies are confined to only this one single district, because Aravallis extend further deep into the state of Rajasthan also, I believe. But the 1992 effect is basically on Gurugram, which is being discussed today. And if at all there has been a discussion, I think you're all referring to some minutes of some meeting which have taken place where some instructions were given by the higher level to work out and then come back. And also in the context of the regional plan, when the regional plan is notified, everyone has an opportunity to say what he or she wants to say in support of it, against it, or what is missing or what needs to be added. So I think that process is on now.
I agree, sir. So that's another viewpoint, and we must take into consideration Mr. Ramachandran's point of view that people who are living there, if they are from the lower economic background, their rights need to be protected, but not at the cost of the forest. Ritvik Datta, Chetan Agarwal and Mr. Ramachandran, pleasure to have you gentlemen on this conversation. And well, I'm going to only conclude this debate on this point that for a state struggling with water and battling air pollution, the short-sightedness of looking to sacrifice any bit of the Aravallis will come back and haunt each one of us, if not stop. So stay with us for a property explainer. On the other side of the break, we will look at what is expression of interest when it comes to residential real estate. The one thing which RERA or the Real Estate Regulatory Act has banned is pre-launches in the country. Even before the developer manages to get his construction approvals, he would in the past go ahead and launch projects, luring buyers with so-claimed discounted prices and of course a unit of their choice. Now the entire risk in these pre-launches was that if the approval did not come through, the home buyer would bear the cost of the delay. Now, after RERA was implemented in 2016, the developer has been barred from advertising or selling a project without RERA registration. And any project that has been RERA registered does have all its construction approvals in place and required approvals. Now, what has happened is that pre-launches seem to be back in a new disguised form of expression of interest. Kuldeep Chawla, an experienced real estate professional and former CFO Puravankara Projects, joins us in this Property Explainer to tell us what exactly is expression of interest. Kuldeep, am I right or wrong in understanding that this is really a disguised form of pre-launches?
Well, the answer is yes and no, Manisha, but allow me to explain. I think the expression of interest is best understood if we make it what is called a book building process in the financial or the IPO markets. What happens is that a developer gives you as a prospective buyer all the details of the project, the product, etc. He then invites you to express your interest in buying, a product, let's say an example, a home, of which details are with you. That could happen with or without a price band. What happens is you are expected to give your interest and get in the queue to get your preferred home. Let's say that you, Manisha, put an expression of interest for which you put up a small amount of money, anything between 50,000 to a couple of lakhs, depending on the value of the property, and you are at the top of the queue. Kuldeep instead takes time and he's at the bottom of the queue. So once this whole process is concluded, Manisha gets the first preference because she has chosen the same type of 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment that Kuldeep wants.
All right.
Now,
so are you saying there is
the
no money exchanged here? I am only as Manisha going and saying I am interested in buying a 2-bedroom apartment in your project, but I am not giving a check to the builder.
There are two parts to this. That's why I said yes and no. And we'll separate it, what used to happen pre-RERA, and then we'll talk post-RERA, because I think post-RERA, just to make it clear to your viewers, the use of any advertising methodology, right, to solicit, any customer, whether directly or indirectly, is banned. With or without a price, in my reading of the law under Section 3 of the RERA Act. It has positives, right? I think the key issue really is, are we crossing the line pre-RERA by engaging with customers?
In spirit, Kuldeep, are we not? RERA says till you have got all your approvals, please do not solicit buyers.
So let me make it abundantly clear. In my reading of the RERA Act and the understanding of the law, whether in letter or in spirit, this is not allowed. We also need to appreciate and understand that what is the risk, because if you were to not take money also, as some people have been saying, that listen, I'm not taking any money, I'm only sharing information. To my mind, the reading of the section does not even allow you to do that, because the word advertise is very broadly defined to include any act, any medium, so on and so forth. We can get into the actual act if you want. The point being that if you were to take money, then the customer can also sue you, and the RERA authority has the right to go after you. If you do not take money, then the customer will do nothing or doesn't have any right. But the RERA authority has the right, and the provisions are quite onerous.
So here's my question. It is quite rampant, at least in North India now. It's beginning to be done by a lot of developers. So it's really now, if there is no money exchange, you're saying that the regulatory authority has to keep a close eye on what's going on in the market and then probably, bring them under the law by charging either a 5% cost of the project or not giving them a RERA approval, isn't it?
Yes, and before that...
Go ahead.
And before that, Manisha, the RERA authority or its officers would actually issue a notice to such real estate developer. But the relevant point is, what developers or market participants are saying, listen, I'm engaging with channel partners. Now, let me make it clear. So long as you are engaging with your own employees, training them on a project or on sales, that's fine. Because employees are bound by an employment contract. The moment you engage with any party outside, person or persons outside your company or organization, right? The question then becomes, what example you are engaging with a broker or a marketing agent or a channel partner. And you're saying, I'm training them. I'm going to that extent. I'm not saying engaging with the customer just yet. Right? That to my mind is amply clear. I'm saying, and maybe I'm taking a conservative view, but I think it's better to err on the side of caution.
Fair
because
enough.
The issue is very simple. You advertise something, you talk of something, and the product might change. The approval might be different. The RERA authority may not give you the approval. Then you've gone and even spoken to your marketing agents. So going back to the point I'm trying to make, when you engage with your marketing agents, what is the main objective of a marketing agent? What is the relationship that you have with a marketing agent? Is to market your projects, right? So that then is saying you are advertising, you're promoting.
So you can't do that. I think we'll have to wrap out there, Kuldeep, but you've explained it very clearly on why it's important for at least the home buyer and including the marketing agents, which is, brokers and intermediaries, to stay away from any expression of interest projects, even if it means a nominal amount of booking, $5,000 or without any amount, as RERA says. Thanks so much for joining us and giving us your time to explain this. Well, that's it from us. We've completely run out of time, but thanks so much for watching.